I'm Jason Cook. With over 20 years of experience as a professional trainer, coach, and clinician in the equine industry, I've had the privilege of dedicating thousands of hours to perfecting my craft. Now I'm excited to share my expertise with you through this podcast. We will explore some of my past experiences as well as those of other individuals to provide you with a wealth of knowledge and insights to enhance your journey. Whether you are a novice or an experienced horseman, this podcast will offer valuable perspectives to help you achieve success. We have Jayde Slade, and part of your home is Rosebud, Arkansas. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then the other half of the year, you're lucky and you live. And where are you actually staying now in Arizona when you go to Arizona?
Well, that's a great question. Last 2 years I've stayed in Fort Paw, and this year I'm looking forward to trying to stay closer to Santan where I can move out there and where I can have a clientele all year. So that's kind of my goal.
Oh, and just stay out there?
Yes, sir.
Well, that would be great.
Yes, sir.
I really liked it out there. Chris goes out for, at least a month every year now?
Mm-hmm. And if I could stay longer, I would.
I think that'll happen in the near future.
I hope.
Yeah, and I lived out there about 5 years back in the 2000s and up at Snowflake. Mm-hmm. And, there's lots of Sherwoods up there, and I think your mother was a Sherwood?
My dad's mom is a Sherwood.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I didn't know how that worked.
Yeah.
But, and then you mentioned you live with another family in another podcast. You live with another family, Westbrooks. Westbrooks.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Westbrooks, there was some of those that lived out outside of Snowflake there, I think, when I was there. And it may be the same bunch that lives down there now. I really don't know.
I don't know either. They're from Casper, Wyoming. They're a great family.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, really good people.
Yeah.
But so let's start. Where were you born and raised? And let's just start from there and go from there.
You bet. So I was born in, I'm pretty sure, Chandler, Arizona, somewhere in the valley. I lived in Arizona till I was 6, and then we moved to Arkansas, and I've lived in Rosebud ever since.
Okay.
So.
And how long have you been going back and forth?
Before my wife and I got married, so 5 years.
5 years?
Yes, sir.
You've been going back and forth. So you started at about 20, you're 25?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you grew up, I assume you've been around horses about all your life?
Ever since I came home from the hospital, I've been riding a horse.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about your childhood there. Any sports or anything in school?
Nope. No sports. I've just rode colts and roped and hunted and fished and trapped. That's all I did.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Big hunter too, huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So when did you start training horses and how'd that go?
I took my first outside horse when I was 9, and it was a Palomino gelding that my uncle had raised, and my dad helped him buy him, or buy his mom, and they raised him, and his name was Lightning, and I've learned a lot since then. But I remember he gave me the runaround a few times. He run me under some trees and up against fences, and turned out to be a nice horse, but the biggest problem was he had 2 big old wolf teeth, and I had no clue. So every time he'd pick up, he'd just send you somewhere wherever you wanted to go, wherever he wanted to go. So that was my start, and I've never not had any since then. So.
Since then?
Yes, sir.
And that's pretty much been how you've made your living?
Yes, sir.
Has it? Okay. And you just took pretty much just whatever came to you?
Oh, yeah. I rode everything. I've rode everything.
That's awesome. I think that's really important in the beginning to learn how to do it. I think the good horses don't do you a lot of favors in the beginning.
No, sir.
I mean, later on, I think it's great to get on some to show you kind of what you know. But, man, you really learn how to train one when you have a lot of variety.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It just before we started this, we were talking about a horse that I had started years ago. He's still the toughest horse that I've ever messed with. And, got him broke and got him where I could ride him, but you really couldn't trust him. And he was going to take longer than others to make it. And they're just kind of like people I look at as some of them are quick learners and some of them not so much. And some of them you got to be there for more than others. And there's just no cookie cutter program.
No, sir.
And so you started training at the age of 9. And then so after you graduated high school, probably in Rosebud, right?
I did, yes, sir.
And then kind of what life looked like then?
So I graduated at 16, and Yeah, I hated school.
Okay.
I absolutely hated school.
It sounds like you were good at it.
Well, I knew that I didn't want to go to school, so I heard of some other kids, some of my cousins graduating early. So in 7th grade, I was like, I got to have a plan. So I sat down with somebody, and I took 2 Englishes one year, 2 maths one year, didn't play any sports, and I just did school. I didn't do an ounce of homework, didn't care to. I just went to school, went home, and I was either running traps or riding horses. So
You got after it.
I did.
Okay. And so you got out at 16, so now you're on your own. What happens then?
I rode lots of horses, and at 18, and I roped a lot. I jackpotted a lot. I had a couple good horses that my dad had started, and then I helped finish, and then some that I had started and finished. And I jackpotted and rodeoed. If there was a place to go within 2-3 hours, I was there 3-4 nights a week, and I did that in high school too. But I was going hard, so I trained horses and roped.
And mostly jackpots. Did you ever get your card and do ACRA or PRCA or anything?
I did some ACA rodeos, but I haven't went to the PRCA. I'm still holding that card in my back pocket.
Okay.
I'll be ready for that later.
Okay, that rookie year.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes. Do you have any aspirations of making the NFR any day, or would you
Absolutely.
rather? Oh, you do.
Yeah.
You want to go the NFR?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm always curious on that. As you know, some folks, want to go the competitive route like that, and then they come to a crossroads on the training part of it. Mm-hmm. Like in the rope horse world right now, the futurities.
They're so good.
And it'll be interesting to me to see what that does to the PRCA.
Yep.
We know PBR and bull riding changed the PRCA, but so that would be a pretty tough deal, I would think. But that's an interesting dream right there to go to the PRCA. Not many people can say they've done that, and to go to the NFR.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. So you started training, and you've pretty much been doing that since you graduated at 16. So as far as the horsemanship, so how did that come about? I'm sure horses have taught you a lot, and you've had a little mentorship from different people. But let's talk about a few of the places that you've learned what you've learned in your horsemanship journey.
Absolutely. So the biggest part growing up was my dad. So my dad, he grew up with horses like the $5 ponies from the sale barns, and my great-grandpa would buy them, and he'd just say, hey, go ride them. And my dad was ate up with it. So it didn't matter. He'd get hurt, bucked off, whatever, but he started figuring out there's better ways instead of getting stuck riding the dinks and or just trying to make the dinks better. And then he got sick when I was born, or before I was born, with Crohn's disease, so he had a lot of time to study it. He studied bloodlines, he studied how horses moved, he studied all that stuff. So as a kid, he was very adamant about how I rode him. And he let me learn the hard way quite a few times when I'd talk back or whatever. And horses taught me a lot, but I think the biggest part of my horsemanship journey has been just figuring it out from horses. And then now I go places and I educate myself, and I enjoy learning from people that are better than I am or understand the horse's mind. Because I think a lot of people can understand the mechanics of a horse, but they don't understand how the mind. They want a horse to work a certain way, but they don't care how he's thinking or why he's doing what he's doing. And I went to a Ricky Quinn clinic. He's a guy out of Nebraska, really good horseman, and he helped me take my horsemanship to the next level because he's more concerned about what the mind is doing, and if their mind's right, their body's going to fall into place in the suit. So that really opened my eyes, and that was that next step that I was looking for. I could get my horses to do some good stuff, but I felt like, well, you always feel that way as a horseman or a trainer or whatever you want to be called. There's always another level. And I felt like I had hit my ceiling, and being able to meet Ricky and just discuss those kind of things with him opened my eyes to, like, I can do this in the roping. And I study a lot of videos. I watch how horses work. I like watching Nick Dowers. I love how his horses look like they love their job. And so that's important to me. I like my horses loving their job, even if they're scared or dull or whatever. Like, I think we can teach them to enjoy what we're doing, or at least not dread it. And And so that's been a cool journey of mine, trying to learn the horse's mind. And I see a lot of progress with how they turn and stop and watch a cow and all the stuff that we want them to do. Mm-hmm. If you go for the mind first, and maybe it's the gut because they're already not feeling good from somewhere else, and being able to heal that and get the mind under control, and then we start training the body. Mm-hmm. So.
Mm-hmm. And you picked a lot of that up from Ricky. Mm-hmm. And
he was the start of it. Like he was big about it. So
yeah. Who are some others? You have any others?
I haven't rode with a lot of guys, to be honest with you. I rode with a guy named Marcelo Guzman in Arizona. I took a lesson with him, and it was cool just he's a Chilean, and seeing how he got his horses to work, and it intrigued me, and that helped me a little bit. And I don't know. I just watch guys at the jackpots. I go to the fraternities, and one day I was sitting at the bottom of the arena at a rope horse fraternity, and I just went to watch. I was riding a Carmillo stud at the time, and I was just sitting there, and Miles Baker is sitting next to me, and I wanted to ask him, but I was nervous. I was just I wanted to ask him all sorts of questions, but I tried to narrow it down because I knew he was in business mode, and I don't want to take away from that. Mm-hmm. And I finally just made myself ask him. I said, what is the one thing, if you were to tell me one thing that a person should work on? And he never looked at me. He's looking at his CHC, I think it is, and watching all the scores and watching the horses, and he just goes, balance. Never looked me in the eye, doesn't know who I am, but it doesn't matter. That changed my perspective because I was like, balance. All right, so if they're balanced, traveling from behind, got their shoulders up, they can move wherever they want to. And then I've just been playing with that idea all the time. And then I learned that if the more balance you have, the better spins you have, and things like that. So it's really helped me progress. Just one word. If you sit there and break it down, the balance is so important with a horse. So,
yeah, it's extremely important, and balance determines where they're headed. And I think sometimes when people feel them out of balance, they attack a body part. Yep. And really, the body part's just an off byproduct of where the mind's going. If that makes sense. Yep. And now providing their sound, right, and not compensating for pain. Right. Like if I put a rock in my shoe, I'm going to look kind of awkward, and I'm going to compensate for that with my mind. But I find that happens a lot on horses traveling crooked or leaning especially. Yeah. They're always leaning towards something. Right. I mean, always. They're leaning towards something. But so you've learned from a few different people there, and now you operate, hopefully, full-time will be eventually in Arizona. Yes, sir. I don't know how you're going to handle those summers, but...
We've talked about it. His wife's from Arizona, and she said she'd much rather be in Arizona heat than here, like today. She got sick today from the heat. Really?
Yeah. It was hot. We went up to that horse show, and I told my wife, I said, man, it's September. And I said, and the numbers, they had a few stalls open, but there were still several people there. But man, it was hot, and I had those young ones I took up there, which I liked it being hot because they needed it. And when I got done riding, we didn't stall or anything. Mine are out there tied to the outdoor arena in a line, and it was the only ones. So, unlike a lot of you're the youngest person I believe I've interviewed. Is that right, Chris?
I think so.
Yeah. So you don't have a life story.
I don't.
So that's good. You know what that means? That means we get to talk about other stuff.
Absolutely.
Maybe horse training and stuff. And so we'll just start. You're up here today for a rope clinic. Chris kind of hosted you, brought you up here, and you hosted it at Dylan's house. And you do roping horse clinics
yes,
all over the place.
Yes, sir.
And you came up here for that today, and it was nice and toasty. And was it dusty for you guys?
It wasn't terrible.
No.
Not what I'm used to at home. Yeah. I mean, it was good.
That's good. That's good. And so you've probably you've coached several people now in the roping part of it. You've got a chance to be around a lot of people in this, and you're going to be around a lot more.
Yes, sir.
With a good future ahead of you. But so what's the number one thing that you see so far that you see people needing help with, and we're gonna stick it to roping, because that's kind of your profession right now, and I want to hear about what you see people needing the most help with in the roping, and we really don't have to right off the bat go to header or heeler,
right?
But we could go there if you'd like. But you just go ahead and tell us about that.
I think with team ropers, the biggest thing is they don't consider the horse a whole lot.
Okay.
A lot of team ropers want to rope.
Okay.
And so they don't consider certain things like, hey, the horse is a little sore, or the horse's mind is not roping. It's just fractious and worried. And I mean, I see it to a point. Like there's a lot of hobby in team roping, and people pay to rope in team rope. But I think if they want to do that, they need to buy a veteran that just knows his job and doesn't care. If you're going to buy a young horse, or a horse with a lot of power, or a horse that needs that kind of maintenance, mind maintenance, I think a person should really, they need to work on themselves. If they get themselves squared away, those horses, you can't beat them. But a lot of the times people want to buy the bullet bike and they need the moped. And so
yeah, that's what I always say. I say people want a Lamborghini and they need a Ford Taurus.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's hard to convince people of that.
Right.
Especially people people that might go to where you're at in the winter, obviously they can afford it.
Right.
Because roping's expensive.
Absolutely.
And now they've taken time away to go out there. And that's even more expensive.
Right.
And so these people, obviously, a lot of them, are pretty fortunate. And people that are pretty fortunate didn't get there by being dumb.
Right.
And a lot of them, have quite a bit of funds, and they want to look nice doing it, and they want to have a nice horse.
Yep.
And they want what's hot.
Right.
Not what's hot-blooded, but what's hot as far as popular.
Yep.
And with that comes an Achilles heel.
Yep, absolutely.
A little bit. And I feel like we can deal with that in every industry. I coach a lot of non-pros and amateurs, and what they need to win on isn't necessarily what they might desire sometimes.
Right.
And you have to get that match.
Right.
Because as you both have roped a lot, and being average wins.
It does. There's a lot of guys that don't care about their horse, and they can go win first.
I mean, and even being average is in not even being super fast.
Yep.
I mean, how many NFRs could we probably go back to than if you rope 10 head
in 5 seconds, 6 seconds.
A piece? Because a lot of times sometimes the clock doesn't, I mean.
One team that's caught 10.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah. Happens often.
Just stop the clock. Yeah.
And so with that, they don't think about their horse, the number one problem. Okay, let's get a little more specific on a scenario. Let's make a scenario and to where they're really more focused on roping versus a horse. So draw a scenario up for us a little bit, because I think it's really good that people understand a scenario that could apply at, so that they might be involved.
Right. So I see this a lot. People are busy. They've got jobs, and they want to rope. They'll catch their horse Friday at 6 o'clock, and they want to run 15 head. And they haven't touched him all week or in 3 weeks. And they pull him up, lope 2 circles, back him in the box, and say, hey, let's rock and roll.
And this horse possibly has been at the trainer for 60 days.
Yep.
Had 60 days worth of roping on. It's 4 years old.
Yep.
And it's a good horse.
Yep.
But they take it home, they don't ride it.
Right.
And they come up, they go with the roping. They only remember the last time what the horse was like.
Yep.
And it's not a 4-wheeler.
Right. Right.
And I think some people figure it out, and some people just reach deeper into their pocketbooks.
Right.
Because there's only one way you can not become a better horseman in the roping, and that's just have unlimited funds.
Right.
I mean, there's really no other way.
Or they're just content where they're at, so they don't mind if their horse spins out. They'll just maul him around and go again.
And it's more about just the camaraderie.
Yeah, they enjoy
being
it.
there. Yeah,
absolutely, it's fun
and stuff like that. We know a guy that ropes that he's an older gentleman. He rides in.
Oh.
He says, "You ready?"
Yeah.
He says, "Yeah," and he spits and nods. I don't think you could spit on that horse without a 1/1000, and that horse is going.
He's gone.
Because he does it every time.
Yep.
Does
He
he
does.
not?
Yes.
Every time.
It's the
And you can
truth.
bet if you're heeling with him, When
It's
he
happening.
spits, you're leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time. And those horses understand that. It's like people that walk in and say, are we going to score this one?
Yep.
You know, we do all the nodding and stuff. Well, that sure transfers over into the show world also. So your main clients probably are number 4, 5s?
Yeah. I've got, I'd say all my clients are 4s or 5s usually.
That's kind of,
Yeah.
you know, so what kind of attributes, if they were going to go out and find a horse, would you tell them to look for?
Tolerant. I see that a lot. The horse that I like to ride maybe not be as tolerant, but he's broke, and he's looking for a release. It's sometimes better to find a horse that, for people like that have been trained maybe not as well, not as refined, but they know their job, and they I don't even know if they like it. Some of them do, and some of them don't, but they know they do it every day, and they run X amount of steers, and they're comfortable with their life. And so that's kind of my advice is people finding, I think people want the dream. Like they want to buy that young 4-year-old that'll drag his butt and spin and turn. Well, you can take that out of him in a day, 10 minutes. I think they need to go get on one they can back in the box and win. If it's a hobby, it should be if I don't have time to really put myself to work to get to where I can communicate with this horse good enough, I need to go buy the one that maybe is 18, that maybe he's lost a step for me at a high level, but he's so good for this guy that can rope in the 12 down or the 10 down, and he's going to make the same go every time, and it doesn't bother him, and he just knows his job, and he's more confident than the guy on his back. And that's what I think a lot of people should be looking for. And they are hard to find. They're getting harder to find.
They are.
And I think that's in every industry. Cutting, reining, I think it's in the ranch horse, whatever. It's hard to find the good ones because people don't want to turn loose.
Yep. Good old solid. That's tolerant.
Yep.
You know, and I'm kind of like you. I like one that less means more on the horse. But I went to a barn this last week. They were having trouble with a horse in the box. And they said it's a calf horse, a breakaway horse, and said it's really good in the field.
Right.
But it's not very good in the box, and it had a few things it was doing. But the main guy, he could get along with it and make it better.
Right.
But he would put others on it, and there was problems, and he couldn't figure out what the deal was because he was telling them to do. Well, I watched for a second, and they were one of the kid that was on. A good hand, rope super sharp, but he just pretty much roped all his life. Well, they kind of abandoned their horse with their legs.
Right.
And this horse was pretty sensitive. And so when you abandon your horse with your legs, I look at it as like, so if you're abandoning your horse and you're holding your legs that far off a horse, about 8 inches, well, your foot gets a lot of speed before it touches it.
And it's surprising.
Yeah, and if you put this one in, it travels 8 inches and hits them out of nowhere, and then you get too far the other way, and then here comes that other one, slaps them, and it's too much for those horses. It's too late. And versus staying a little more in contact and not abandon your horse so much with your legs, and we have that a lot in the show world that we have because we show in ranch trail, ranch riding, and different things, and I finally caught on to it because I couldn't figure out for a long time what was happening. And I said, hey, their legs, they're really opening and closing doors too much.
Right.
And those horses overreact. And I think if you have a really dead-sided horse, it really doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
You just ride that thing in there and just airplane shift it over, like a joystick. And it just turns around and just sits there. And when you want to go, you drop your hand. And I find that those horses that are a little more sensitive and fun to ride for me, and you can get to do some neat things, they're not really good.
They're not as user-friendly, no.
They're not. And to get them just gentle and tolerant is different. And some people think, you're talking down to them by saying they can't ride that horse.
Right.
And I said, well, you can't because it develops feel.
Right.
And you can't watch enough videos to develop that feel. You can't take enough lessons. Nope. You have to have time in the saddle.
Yeah, and that was something Chris and I were talking about today, even opening doors. and stuff, I was saying, like, Chris, we got to keep our legs still, because we don't want to chase. It's our horse's job to run to the cow.
Yes.
If we're chasing him with our body, we're telling him to do all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
And that's tough. And I don't know how many times Chris heard me today. Put your hand down. Your hand down. Trust him, because I truly believe horses crave responsibility, and they crave you to trust them. And it's hard for a team roper to trust a horse.
It is.
And especially if they've had a little bit of an issue. So like they'll come out and they're double clutching them or holding all the way down the arena, and these horses get stronger and they run harder and they get worse in the box and they start ducking or they can't control anything and they're miserable. The horses are really miserable. And it's crazy if you can get a person to truly even just drop his hand. A horse is just losing it in the box and you drop his hand and it's like, hey, you're on your own. And he might take off and run. But when you bring him back and you drop it again, he's a little softer.
It'll mean something.
Because then he starts going, hey, what do you want?
Yeah.
Because his mind starts to work. He knows what to expect when you pull on him.
Yeah.
And that's a cool drill I do. Like, I'm like, you put that hand in his neck and see where he goes. If he runs in the middle of them other horses, where's his mind at?
Yep.
It ain't on the cow.
No.
It ain't,
He was ducking before he left.
Yeah. Or he might run and bounce his head off the end of the arena. But that's his mental problem that we've created. And I'm willing to let them go to that spot and then bring them back. And that's something I try to really work on is let them go to they're already frustrated from us. Go out there and get a little confused, get curious. And then when that curiosity hits, I'll help you. And so that's something I really try to look for in a horse is I almost want them to train themselves and I'm just there to help them get more balanced and come along the way, so.
Especially anything involving a cow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to me, a relationship with a cow is easier and makes more sense to me, and I feel like it would be to a horse than the reining type stuff.
Right.
You have to have a very submissive horse that asks a lot of questions.
Very willing.
And then you go out and you try to put them on a cow, and some of them are the flag, and you kind of can get frustrated. A lot more docile than a cow horse who you need them to think on their own. They need to rate, and they rate through problem solving.
Right.
They've passed that cow at some point in time and had to go back and get him. And pretty soon you can't push him past.
Nope. Absolutely.
And that's what I think we get a lot in the past. I would see a lot of in the roping. The closer they got to the cow, the harder they kicked and the more they pulled.
Yep.
And what I think you see mostly, not only the rate, the biggest detrimental thing that you see is box problems.
Right.
Because of the anxiety of the mixed martial arts match you have out there in the arena.
Absolutely.
And you can score till you're blue in the face.
And
but if you keep lying to him
yep.
out there in the field, it don't matter.
Yep.
It does not matter. And and people, I think when they score, they're just doing what they know. They're not trying to do anything bad.
No.
That's just what they seen Joe do.
Right.
And Bob.
Right.
And they won.
Yeah. I can't remember where I heard it, but I heard it the other day, and the guy was talking about rope horses, and he said, in the box, you've got to be the best liar in the world. In the field, you got to be the most honest human on earth.
Yep.
And that's so true.
That is very true.
I mean, you got to tell them, hey, I'm nervous, I'm jacked up, and let them build that energy, and then just sit there. And sometimes I'm pretty bad sometimes at the house. I won't tell my healer because I want that horse to move.
Yeah.
Because they get savvy to that too.
Yeah.
And or I'll just tell my healer as we're riding up there, like, hey, I need you to leave on this one, and just soften your horse. Pick up and let him just dribble to a stop and back up soft. But that helps my head horse get sharp. Or same with the heel horse. Like at the higher number ropings, if you're not a rodeo, there's barrier. So your heel horse has to score too, and they've got to run hard, and they've got to get around the end of the cow and not cut in. And there's plenty of intensity there, but they got to score. And so sometimes I'll say, hey, your horse is a little strong, go steer stop him, and I'm just going to stay here. And I think there's a lot of value to that, but people think, oh, I just score him and he'll get better, and that's not the case. Sometimes you need to score. You need to go out here and do other stuff. You've got to lie to him really good to get him to want to score good. And some of them aren't built for scoring for the open, and that's just the case. Their mental capacity, and maybe it's just the time frame that people want to get them ready in. their mental capacity is not ready.
That's a good point.
And you were talking earlier today about a horse that you had that was kind of like that.
Yeah.
You might.
I've got a yellow horse, and I got him as a 3-year-old, and he's been a challenge. We'll just put it that way. I named him Einstein because he's extremely smart, but he's bat crap crazy. On the ground, you think he's going to kill you every day. And I've done everything I know, and I didn't do. I would do stuff different the more I figured out. But that's water under the bridge. You know what I mean? You can only go back and try to patch so much. You've already built that horse to where he is at. But my whole goal with that horse is like, that's my BFI head horse. That is the open. He can run. He's athletic, and he's a little bit nutty, so you ought to be good.
Yeah.
And I worked that horse slow, and I built him up. He's great. Best ranch horse you ever rode. I mean, he could blow up to the biggest bull, and he's going to keep you safe and take care of everything. And so I'm thinking, man, he's had the pressure. Like, I've cowboyed on him. You can step off of him anywhere, go get a Coke from the store and be back, and he's going to be standing there. But anyway, I started him heading steers, and his first reaction when I roped, he just crawled sideways. And most people think, man, that's it. But I didn't feel like he's going to stay sound with how he did it because it was so aggressive. Plus, it's hard to handle the cow in that situation. So I spent 2 years getting this horse balanced, framed up. He'd score good. He was great at the house. And you take him somewhere. And I've hauled him all over the United States at clinics and different places, take him to jackpots and burn one or whatever. And this horse, he knows. I mean, he gets all wadded up. I mean, just nervous. He can't hardly walk to the box. He's just creeping. And a lot of guys, you go to spanking on a horse like that. And you want to talk about that horse would kill you. I spanked him one time running into a cow, and I couldn't pick up my rope for a week. Just I was like, oh, he's not trying hard enough. I just over and under him, picked my rope up, and he blew up there and rated, and he felt good. But the next time I picked up my rope, dude, that sucker jumped 10 feet to the left and 10 feet to the right. But and it's really hard for a high number guy to season one because they've got me rated high enough. They've got me at a 7-header. It's if you're not going to like a fraternity, which that horse has missed that boat, and I wasn't in that mind frame then. I want to head for guys that can out-heel me. And that means you're open in the higher number open, so it's a lot of pressure. And this horse can't handle it. Just mentally, he's not there. But I keep telling myself he might be 18 before he makes the BFI, but he might be the best horse there.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I mean, I'm money behind on that horse for sure with all the time I've put in, but he's built me. I mean, he's made me understand how these snorty and touchy and different horses are so I can help my future horses coming up. And I still got high hopes for him. My assistant, he's kind of my assistant. He's in high school and stuff, and he helps me, and he feeds in the evenings for me. His name's Austin. I finally let him ride him one day, and he's like, man, this horse is nice. And he's won about $6,000 on him. He placed on him today at a jackpot.
Okay.
But it's lower numbered. The cattle still run, but he don't have to score like a shot dog and scream out of there 5 times in a row. You know, he can just go World Series barrier with the gates, and that horse is, I can see it. He's slowly getting the confidence because he had confidence in me, and that was something Austin was saying. He was at a rope and he was a little struggling with him. The horse was just nervous, wanting to step around, and he wouldn't get him between his legs. You know, he was too much. Like we were talking about, open one door, close another. And I get over there and I just say, whoa, and that horse just locks up and looking right out the pipe, and he goes, that horse knows your voice. I'm like, no, that horse respects. He knows when I say something, I mean it.
Yeah.
And he's been able to start winning on him and figure out his quirks and stuff. So it's kind of cool to watch. But that horse, I truly believe he'll make it. But it won't be this year. It won't be next year. And it could be. But I'm saying 5-6 years, and he hits 12, 13.
Yeah.
He'll be unreal and unbeatable. But sometimes it's hard to wait that long. You want to rush it because there's so much talent there.
Well, and we set a standard too. Everything's based on a standard.
Right.
You know, and fraternities create a standard.
Right.
You know, and I mean, I don't know how many, if a person was a fraternity trainer in any discipline, how many you have to go through to get the ones that you want. That are left, that are mentally sound and physically sound and everything.
Right.
And then pick your best.
Right.
And I think that's why a lot of people play the numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
They need that many numbers because they need to win to keep their business going.
Right.
And the horses I took today are, of course, I own two of the three. And well, shoot, one's 5 and has had a little over a year's riding.
Right.
The other one's 7 and is stuck around there because he was a bronc when I started him.
Right.
Not a bronc, but he would buck every time you saddled him.
Mm-hmm.
And his mom produced that. She was like that. And I tried to head it off, but now I give lessons on him.
Right.
But he's never bucked anybody off. But he's 7, and I'm hauling those to the shows this season because they've stuck around,
right.
and they're going to win.
Right.
They're going to be okay, and my wife's going to show them both, and I'll probably show them some. But futurity time frame, it wasn't ever going to happen.
No. And the futurities is tough. Like, I've got a 3-year-old by Winner's Version that I'm riding, come off the track, and you talk about fried. When I got him, he could hear a gate across the field, and he would jump. And it took me months to get that horse quiet with a gate. And what I figured out was you don't hold him up.
Yeah.
I taught him good, mechanics of moving his whole body and stuff. And then when he would jump or something, I'd redirect his mind and get him back on me. And now that's the most talented 3-year-old I've ever rode. And the gate doesn't bother him. But he's got a sister that she's not by Winner's Version, but they ran at the same time. And she won her first race. So they really hammered her, I feel like. And she's coming on now, but she's taken me 3 more months to get her comfortable enough where I can even think about roping on her because their minds are so fried. And, I'm big on, like, I really want to show and I really want to get out there, but it still takes that special horse and that special mind. And I truly feel like that 3-year-old's got it. But I wasn't very hopeful for a little while. I knew he'd make a great head horse. I knew both of them would. Because you can feel it. It's a feel. You can feel how they move on their first ride. If you're like, man, he's got it. In a lot of ways, they've got it. And I don't know. It's got me excited because I feel it. Like there's hope right there, and I know the owners are willing to show him, and that makes it
that's
even
exciting.
Better.
Yeah. Good customers that'll help stick with you through that. And you're going to have several over the years.
Right.
And that means a lot. They're worth their weight in gold.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we can't do it without them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we ride a few of our own too, but it's sure good to have some
that trust it. They understand
trust the process.
Yeah, they understand that, hey, that horse is really messed up, and he needs the help. And it's going to take those extra year and a half or whatever it is to put that foundation on them to get them going. And it's enjoyable that they're like, oh, yeah, I trust you. And that means a lot because that makes, as a trainer, and I'm sure you felt this way, when someone trusts you, you're going that extra step because you want to prove to them how good you can do and how good their horses really are. Another guy that needs the numbers would have probably thrown those two out the window.
They will. Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. And I'm really particular about how many horses I take in because I want to give that quality. Even if I have to charge a little more, if I can give the quality and the value to my customer, they're going to come again, or they're going to buy another horse, or they're going to send me that. They're going to have a colt with me all the time, and I can appreciate that. I stand behind people that want to stand behind me, and so that's enjoyable. And
Are you two related?
No, we're not related.
Because things you're saying, I've heard from him. I'm like,
yeah,
this is,
and I think it's just the industry, and things that he's experiencing already in the industry, and things I've experienced, and I had to experience a lot of it through, I worked for a cutting horse trainer for 2.5 years, but other than that, it was what taught me horsemanship. And how to deal with clients was bologna and cheese. Right. And being broke.
Absolutely.
For years.
Right.
And so at 25, I'd been doing it for 5 years. And I'd quit my job to live my dream.
Right.
And I move out, to Arizona, and I don't know what I was thinking. I really don't. But I'd watched a few John Lyons videos. And that's about it.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I was bad. I was terrible. It was really bad. But I'm kind of hard-headed, and horses have taught me more.
Absolutely.
However, I do have mentors like Nick and people who I try to get information from, and many others. I've learned from a lot of people.
You can learn from everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. But horses, if you put your hind end in the saddle, and most of all, if when you start, you take whatever they drop off. You don't even ask.
Nope.
I mean, they unload them like buffalo sometimes.
Right.
You say, just tie it out there. Oh, no, it's loose in the trailer. We ran it in. We just caught it this morning.
Yep.
And those people will be back in 30 days. They want to walk, trot, lope, circle on it.
And turn and drag his butt.
And be able to pick their nose and sling their hand in the air and it not buck them off.
Yeah, and go ride down the trail and drink a beer.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's what they want.
That's what they want. And when I did that, that taught me a lot.
Yeah.
And I come to this place over here. We're in Cassville, and I went to work for a pharmacist there that owned the ranch then in 06. Mm-hmm. And I started about 500 by 06. And that had gave me a fairly good understanding. I still had a lot to learn, but it gave me an understanding of how to start colts and survive.
Right.
Still couldn't show a reining horse or train a reining horse, but I could start colts and survive. Right. That's just you can make a living no matter where you live, starting some colts if you had to.
Right.
And horses teach you a lot.
They do.
And that's what a lot of people have to understand. I feel like some people get frustrated when they're not getting it. And why do I have to keep calling you? Why do I not get it? Well, I'm sure they have a profession.
Right.
That I'll never get.
Absolutely.
And that's why I'm excavating. I don't know how to run a backhoe. Mm-hmm. That's one of the few pieces of equipment. But instead of me going and renting one and paying rent for 4 days to do what a backhoe operator can do in 3 hours, I have to go do that. Right. Because you have to feel the hand.
Right. It's a feel.
You have to feel it. And they have to understand, I feel like the people that we're helping, we're going to help them best we can and give them value. Mm-hmm. But it is a feel, and it's not an A plus B equals C.
Nope.
It's not like that.
Nope.
And people think it's an engineering degree, where if you learn the program, you become an engineer.
Right.
And it's not. And coaching isn't either. And he was a coach for 20-something years.
Almost 30.
And you can't buy a program to tell you how to be a coach, because you're dealing with
individual.
An individual, a living creature, mm-hmm. A human. Mm-hmm. And with us, we're dealing with a horse. And when we have that, there's no set things.
Right.
There's a set of, I tell everybody we have a set of principles.
Right.
And if new things are brought into my world to try, as long as it aligns with my principles, I'll try it and Absolutely. I'll see if I can incorporate it.
Absolutely.
And because you have to have the open mind or you'll never get any better.
Right.
You have to have a thick skin for when people say it's stupid and you don't need to work on it. You don't need to score the horse. You don't need to school the horse and all that stuff.
Yep.
And it's very similar in the roping world, I feel like. Where do you see the roping world being in 10 years?
A lot better. I think these fraternities are the ticket. Mm-hmm. They're really, people are seeing value in a rope horse. I mean, I think now more than ever, people think, man, they're worth something. Mm-hmm. Before, they're kind of the bottom of the barrel. Mm-hmm. People always paid a lot for a cutter or a reiner or a ranch horse or hunter jumper or whatever you want to call it. But the team roping horse is like, man, I just $2,500. I've got a horse or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like with the fraternity they put on this year in Utah, the Richards put on, a man was able to win $100,000 for first. Mm-hmm. Just on one horse, his part, like that's unreal. Mm-hmm. And so that gives people more incentive. And the Riata Buckle, it's coming up, and people are breeding for these horses. They're breeding for these athletes in the mind and the ability. And so that makes the value in us as trainers and in those horses more. And I can't be but grateful for that. There's people out there growing the industry. I think Trevor Brazil and Miles Becker are doing a phenomenal job showing what horses should be like. And there's a lot of other guys, the Kirkensloggers, Andy Holcomb. These guys they're setting themselves apart because they are horsemen and they are making nice horses and they're showing them. And that adds the value, and people see it. And with social media, it's got its pros and cons, but people are able to see it and see why that 3-year-old's worth $25,000, and he may not even have run a steer, but he's got it. And people take that chance often now, and it's got me excited. There is money in it. You know, you always hear people like, oh, you'll be a trainer, you're going to be broke your whole life. I don't think that has to be that way. I think a man can grow a good business and be a good horseman. Now, sure, he might have to be creative and actually be good and do the right things, but it's given guys opportunities to be that. You know,
it's created a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for that. I think the team roping world's just growing. You know, the World Series finals, it pays unreal amount of money to win it, and that's got people excited to go, and it's cool. I enjoy it. I enjoy watching people. Even I don't go near as much as I'd like to, but I'm trying to, just like what we were talking about pro rodeoing. I could go. I feel like if I got the right horses and I worked on it, I could go in a year. And maybe I don't make the finals, but I gain experience. But my whole plan is if I can grow a good business in my horses and build great horses and I can set X amount of dollars back and I'm still making money in different avenues or whatever I've got going, I can turn loose for a year and just enjoy it. And that's what I want to do. I don't want to have to pro rodeo and be like, man, I've got to win.
Yeah.
And there's good to that. You got to pull out the dog in you, but I want to do it because I want to be out there and I'm like, man, I made 3 of the nicest head or heel horses I've got out there and I want to show them off.
Yeah.
And that puts more value and more encouragement for me to wait, because I think as a team roper, you can make it when you're in your 30s. Like, you don't have to be 20, 21 like basketball or football
or bull rider.
Or bull rider.
Yeah.
Like, you can wait a little longer and be maybe more business savvy. And I'm not saying that I am. I'm learning every day and I fail a lot. But that gives me a goal, an opportunity where, like, hey, I can turn loose and my family's going to be taken care of and I can go rope and enjoy it and see all the country, because I don't mind driving. I'll drive from here to anywhere and it doesn't bother me. But I don't know. I think there's not a right or wrong way, but for me, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to be successful in my business and in my life in different avenues to where I can turn loose and say, hey guys, I'm gonna hit the road and it's gonna be awesome. Like, and I'm just grateful to do it. And you might not win a dime, you might lose it all, but I can say, hey, I got to go here and man, my horse worked so good, but you know, I dropped the ball or maybe we win the rodeo. It doesn't matter. And that brings me joy just thinking about it, rather than, man, like, I'm just going to do it, you know? Because I think if you come in head down, blaring, sometimes it works, but a lot of times there's a lot of mistakes that you could have avoided by just taking that extra time preparing in the beginning. And I've done that training horses and in other avenues in my life, but I think that preparation and that thought and that goal is good to have, even if it's years away. So that's kind of my aspirations. But I think the team roping industry and the horses that are being made, it's going to do nothing but get better. So.
And it has created a lot more, a different, more avenue, I believe, for the horses. You know, the ranch horse world's the same way. You know, I mean, and it's getting more competitive and more competitive. You can't just have one that fights its head and moves bad and go win anything.
Right.
I mean, it takes a pretty good horse. And I'd say the ropers will start breeding even more, it's like they already are doing, for that horse.
Right. And they're breeding for roping.
Yeah,
and
for roping.
It's not like, hey, we're going to, and they still do, but hey, we're not going to go buy a cutter and he's going to be the best rope horse. They're breeding them because they want him to be the best rope horse.
Rope horse.
And so, you know, like training a cutter to rope, you've got a lot of challenges. Cow horse, same deal. Reiners. Those horses were trained, so you have to try to untrain stuff and bring it back. And sure, there's the freaks out there. Maybe that cow horse, he's comfortable going fast. There's a lot of cool things about it. But, like, I rode some cutters that are scared to death. I'm riding one right now that's scared to death of a cow.
Yeah.
And it takes months, years to get those horses truly comfortable driving in there and staying calm. And so I think it's cool that people are breeding just for rope horses because there's money in it now. You know, so it's a cool thing.
Chris, what's some questions you might have?
Well, I don't know about questions. I just think this is pretty cool.
Well,
that somebody that's been a horse mentor for me for a long time, and another that's newer to me, but you guys are so similar in your thought process. I just think it's kind of cool that now you're together talking about it. We tell him a little bit about the two horses not the one that you of your own, but tell him a little bit about the two horses that you brought today and just some of the things that you're going through with them.
Yeah, so I brought a Grulla gelding. I think he's 5. I can't quite remember. That he's from Arizona, and he was bought out of the big sale, and he felt really pressured to ride good in the sale ring. That makes sense. Big white spots, for a 2-year-old, he shouldn't be all scarred up like he is on his withers and whatnot. And sometimes it's just saddle fit and they're awkward and whatever, but that horse would ride really good if you rode him in a 60 by 40 pin. And you take him out and you can't lope a circle in the pasture. I mean, he'd jump the fence, run off, bird flies, he'd just scatter, And that horse is, I won't say that he's been a challenge, but he's been intriguing to me. And I rode a horse previous that I sold in Arizona last year that reminds me a lot of him. And I actually sold it to the owner of the horse I'm riding now. Anyway, his name's Trigger, and he's truly scared. I mean, when I got him, he would jump over the side of the box when the gates would bang. And I rode him, and at first, we're making progress, and he was butterball fat, and then all of a sudden it was like he's wanting to cross lead, and he's wanting to just stay in this state of scared. And after I've rode him enough, I'm like, hey, he don't feel good. Like something in his belly or his hocks. And I recently got him injected, and I see a lot of improvement. That horse is dealing with a lot. Like, you can't pound on him, you can't hammer on him. You can train on him, but you lay your leg on him, he's going to switch his tail. And that was before I ever got him, and he's a lot better. But he's interesting because I can see him get better, but he's one of those horses you got to wait out. You can't just make it happen. All the ability in the world is there. He can spin, he can slide, he can look cool doing it. He looks showy. But his mind's not with us. So I've spent a long time getting his mind, and I thought, hey, this clinic's a great opportunity to haul him with me and put some runs in a different arena and build him up. And not everything's just roping. Because I'm riding down the pin with each person that runs down the arena and coaching them, and because I want to be present. I want to be in the moment. And I feel like that builds that horse's confidence where it's not like, hey, we got to go to the box, or hey, we got to do this. And he's just scared to death. And Chris saw it today. I might run one heading, and you feel like, man, he's rank. And then the next one, the cow steps weird, and he jumps. Well, old me would have snatched him back over and said, hey, punk, like, that ain't right. But what that does is it builds that ball of anxiety, that ball of frustration. And so, I don't know, I've enjoyed him, and he's sensitive, and he's touchy, and kind of fragile. And so he's fun for me to ride, even though he's got those issues. But his owner's like, hey, I don't care how long it takes, just wait till he's finished. And so, same deal, he trusts me to build a champion, and it's in there. I just got to find it. And the other mare is a very good mare. She's gentle. She's huge. I mean, she's 16 hands.
She's probably taller than Dylan's horse.
Oh, she's big. And I like her. She moves good for a big horse, but she doesn't have the same amount of care. Like, I pick up on that Grulla horse, he's going to turn or stop or do something, and it may not be right. He may lock it up and roll back, and I'm just like, hey, I was just asking you to slow down. And so I honestly struggle more with that gentle horse than I do with the sensitive one. And I was awfully proud of her today. You can back in there and you can run 100 and she don't get bothered. She's that real tolerant, but when it comes to the tolerant, you don't get the finesse. And I run, probably 5?
That's what I'd guess.
5?
Yeah.
First one, she was awesome. And what I struggle with her is she'll get to rolling, and I call her the box car. It takes her a little while to get slowed back down because she won't throw her head. She won't act like anything's wrong, but it's like you're picking up her head and she's just on it. Like,
And she started out as a barrel horse.
And she started out as a barrel horse. And I think she was trained by an older lady, and she was safe. She was gentle. She took care of her. She was pattern good, but she got comfortable just being a little more on the bridle. And that doesn't mean she's ill broke. She just was more comfortable with more pressure. And I want to just lightly pick up and have them gather. I call it the accordion effect. Their nose comes in, their butt comes down, and they round their back. And she struggles with that, you know, because she'd come running out and she's looking for the first barrel. She's got her shoulders up, head over, and it's taken me a long time to get that balance for roping. You know, I want them pretty straight, and each horse has a different style. But the second steer she ran, and I picked up, and she's like, I don't know, it doesn't mean much. And then she softened up and come across, and then the next 4, she was amazing. And I stepped off of her because I knew you can run more on her. It doesn't bother her, but I want her to think, man, I did really good. But I brought those horses, and long story short, I get on tangents sometimes.
That's fine.
I brought those horses because I knew they were relatable to a lot of people's. And that was important to me. Like the Gruya, he reminds me a lot of Chris's Sorrel in some ways. Real touchy, just freak athlete, you know. Maybe has a little bit of uncomfortability somewhere deep down, but it's hard to find. And then the other mare that's like, it's not that important to me.
Yeah.
And so I wanted those horses so people have something to relate to. If I show up with the best horse, they're like, man, that horse is ranked, but I don't have that one. And what I want to show them is maybe your horse is giving you 60%. Maybe he's trying too hard. And how do we get those horses to balance out and look and be confident? And that was something I felt that I was able to show. Both of those horses are great in the box. Both of those horses will watch the cow, but they both have different struggles. And that's just like us. We have different struggles in our lives, you and Chris. And so I wanted that so that it's relatable to a person. And I felt like I achieved that, and people were able to see, like, and I had another one at the trailer, just a green 4-year-old, but he just stood there, and I didn't need him today, and that's fine. You just got to eat alfalfa and make a mess. That's what he does. He's like a pet coon. But I don't know. I like being able to be on somebody's level. You know, even if I got on, 3-4 horses of other people's?
You got on quite a few, and like you, he made it better pretty fast, each one. And I think that was good to show.
Yeah, people lose hope.
They do.
Because they don't understand. It creates frustration, so they lose hope in this horse. And I don't have that. I haven't rode him. So I'm able to get on fresh, clean slate, and it's that feel I'm talking about. I can look at somebody and say, hey, your horse is doing this, but why? Is he hurting? Is he mentally frustrated? Is it the rider? All the above? And sometimes I'm like, hey, can I ride your horse? Because I feel like I can get a better relationship with that horse by being on his back. I can feel that.
And sometimes we feel things that we didn't see. You can't see. And I do the same thing. I try to jump on him real quick and say, let me make sure that this is what you need to be doing.
Right.
You know, and that's why it's called feel.
Yep. And that's what I told people today. And I said, I'm not here. I don't want to just go train your horse where you don't learn, but I have to feel so I can accurately coach you and edge you in the right direction rather than, oh, you just do it this way and that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't work.
No, and I feel like they have trouble on their own applying it if they don't know the why.
Right.
And so much of the time, I think people get a drill, but they don't understand enough on why they need to do that in this situation.
Right. And it may just be that situation. You may school him one time that way, and people think, man, I got to do that every time. And it makes it way worse.
It does, and it changes, and that frustrates people because they're like, well, you told me to do this. Yeah. Well, it's changed now.
Right.
You know,
the horse is in a different spot.
And sometimes people stick on something you show them to do too long.
Right.
And now the horse's mind, I feel like a lot of horses, when I get on them, they're a good horse for the person. They take care of them, But when you go to train on them, their mind has become so set in its ways and it's not malleable anymore. And you have to get that mind broke loose to search off of rhythm and pressure and release and everything. And there might be some struggle, and it might look pretty bad for a while.
Right.
But it's not. I'm having to do that because of what the human allowed the horse to do. Like on the ground, I mean, I'm pretty strict on how my horses are around me on the ground. From the time I touch them, there's a feel on whether they brace their pole against me when I reached over and put the halter on or whatever. There's a feel. I could be blindfolded, and I'm like, this ain't my horse. And I have to continue to start on that.
Right.
You know, and I want to be able to grab them at the base of that halter, and I can move them anywhere around me I want. People are like, well, how do you do that without chasing them with a stick? And I said, well, you can start by, I've got a video, and I did a video where you sit on a bucket against a wall, and you just get the horse to send out, no stick and string, just a 12-foot lead rope, and get it to send to that wall at a walk and that wall over there. And if you can do that sitting on that bucket, he's pretty halter broke. You're getting him going your way. Now you can do some other things.
Absolutely.
Because you can't skip anything to do that.
Nope.
You can't back up when they're pushing you out of their space. You can't chase them. And it's a feel through just a lead rope. You know. And I think people need to know the why more. And I think it's not easy, but an average human can understand.
Absolutely.
But you have to articulate it in a manner that they can digest it. And that's what I think there's a lack of a lot. You know, and I've had people tell me to do things on a horse, and they get offended when I ask them, okay, why does that work? Well, they get offended because they really don't know why it works. They've learned it off Bob. And it might have worked on certain horses, but I need to know why it works and how it works so I know how to apply it. And if you can't explain it to me how it works, how are you going to explain it to the horse? Because I know English, he don't.
I've got a lighter question for him. So what motivated you to do the 4th of July video with the fireworks?
How many views did that get?
A lot. I hadn't even kept up with it.
Because you knew there would be probably some people that were like, why are they doing that to the steers?
Well, I have a good friend in Nevada, and I watched him do it. And he tied it, the firework, he taped it to the horn. So I'm like, man, that's pointing right at your horse. So I was like, I could be a little more creative, and if I've got a steer that kind of runs the rope, and I'll put it straight out his head, and it should be shooting next to us, and that would look really cool. And I wanted to show that my horse will still do his job. And so it was kind of a challenge to me. And sure, if it would have went bad, I'd have just stopped. And I wouldn't have posted it. But like that yellow horse in that video, that's Einstein. On the ground, you can't get with him. You can't touch him with a 20-foot pole until you put your hand on him, and then he'll. And anyway, I was just like, let's just see. And I started off, I just lit a firework in the arena, and I'm loping around, and he's with me. I'm like, all right. This is fine. Yeah, he sees the light, but he just kind of, all right back to being broke. And so I was like, we'll try one. And that heel horse is actually a 3-year-old that I had trained, and I sold it to Austin, my assistant. And he's just a good, kind, that was a tolerant, just kind colt, but could do everything you wanted. And so he's like, I think this would be cool. So I get up. I mean, I'm up at 2:30 in the morning setting all this up, and I've got 2 lights in my arena. And I guess it was just the challenge. I enjoyed doing stuff that people think is foreign or scary because I truly think if you have a horse truly broke and truly on your team, you can do just about whatever you want.
And the key on your team.
Yes, on my team.
Because you can never show them everything. But you can get them to let you negotiate it through it.
And look.
Yes.
I've had literal horses kind of go, are you sure? Look back at me. And Einstein's that way. And he's like, all right, if you're in the flame, I'm in the flame, you know. And that was something I figured out riding the other day. I was just pondering, you never know the fire till you've been put in the flame. And so I'm not scared to try certain things if I feel like my horse is ready. And so I just tried it. And sure, I got a lot of flack for it, and some people don't like it, and that's okay. And I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
Because
Because
it is dangerous.
It is dangerous, and when we post, we do open ourselves up to critique.
Yeah.
Criticism, and it's going to happen.
Right.
It's going to happen.
But do you remember what you said when you watched it?
I don't remember.
You said he's handling that steer to make sure that those are shooting away from
waiting
him.
for him.
Yeah. He said and we talked about it, and these guys wouldn't care that I even mentioned it because I heard them talking about it the other day. The crew in Berryville tried it, and it didn't go quite as good. I don't think they maybe factored that part in or had their horses ready for it. But
some horses can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not for them.
And if people want to see that, where can they find that again?
You just look on my social media, you'll find it.
and what's your social media?
It's just Jayde Slade on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay,
Yeah.
Jayde Slade.
Yes,
So
sir.
if you guys want to check that out, I've watched it. It's a pretty neat deal.
Yeah.
And there's no telling how many
There's no
views
telling.
it got.
You've got a lot of creative posts on there. That's why
I like trying things.
I asked his wife. I just knew that his wife was the one that was in charge of social media, and she said, "Nope, he does it all."
Yeah.
And he does good. He does good with it.
It's a lot of hours. I'm sitting there,
isn't
and
it?
I can't. I mean, I'm not good at it. I don't feel good at it, but I do want to show, like, maybe I don't have the best marketing team or I don't have this stuff, but guys, I'm willing, and that's important.
And it does take a little more time than people think.
Takes a lot of
It
time.
depends on what level you want to take. It's kind of like you want a trail ride or you want to go change leads in a straight line.
Right.
And I do all mine too. My wife has no time for it. And we are going to have the people that have backlash. I posted something I thought was really simple, just how to tie a rope halter last week.
Yeah.
So it's over 250,000 right now. And I have over 250,000 views, and I have 6 comments
Oh gosh.
that it's tied wrong.
And you know what? They're entitled to their
And that's
opinion,
fine.
and that's
And
okay.
and that's fine.
I posted a video of I got this Zebu bull from my uncle.
Oh yeah.
And this thing would hunt you down. I mean, worse than any tiger or lion you're scared of out there. He saw you, he's running. And so I'm like, man, I could rope him, and I had to tie him down. I had to rope him and tie him down like just wild cattle outside. And then I was like, you know what? What's probably the best idea that I have to keep people safe and to make him a good rope and steer? And I was like, I got 3 donkeys. I'll just tie him to it. You know, you tie your show steers, colts, whatever. And I put him on there, and you wouldn't believe the amount of people thought I was abusing him or abusing the donkey. And I'm like, that donkey knows exactly what she's doing.
Yeah.
And that I had a halter on the steer, you know. But and that stuff bothers me. Like I'm by nature I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah.
By nature I want to make everybody feel good and do the best I can. I don't like ruffling feathers or creating controversy. And the biggest thing is, hey, you've got to love yourself and know, like, I didn't do that out of mean, or I didn't do that because I hate the cow or donkey or horse, or I do this because I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to do it.
And there's a lot of people that's just ignorant about it.
Right.
They don't understand. And that's another thing that we have to deal with a lot. I know Chris has had to deal with it coaching because he dealt with parents a lot.
Right.
We deal with owners. We deal with just people on social media. And there's a lot of ignorance. And most of the time, I would say, honestly, it's more ignorance than arrogance.
Right.
But you will run into circumstances where I feel Chris has ran into, we've all ran into arrogance.
Right.
Now that's a little different, but most of the time it's just ignorance. And I think the longer I'm into it, if I will give it the benefit of the doubt and err on the side of ignorance,
Right.
You'll have a lot more grace with the people.
Right.
And turns out that's probably what it was.
Right.
You know, now there's exceptions, but most of the time it's just ignorance, just like I'm sure we're ignorant about a lot of things also.
Absolutely.
And it could come off different, but
And I feel like I'm not the kind of person, I'm not going to go out and critique somebody else. Like,
Right.
if someone wants to ask me, hey, what am I doing? I'll step aside and like, hey, this is what I think. Like it, love it, or leave it. This is how I feel. And it's funny that people get so passionate about certain things. Like, like you said, I'm not here to irritate anybody. I thought, man, this is a creative idea that I thought would be cool and people would like to see. Like, look how broke that horse is, you know, and look how willing. Yeah, sure. If he's wringing his tail and jumping off and doing all sorts of stuff, that doesn't work. And I don't want to be deemed as that person. But at the same point, we've got to understand that everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and it's okay. I mean, worst case, what do? Delete the video? You know what I mean? But I didn't take that way. Like I didn't sleep for a week.
Oh man.
You know, and I'm that way. But I'm learning to become better because I think that was a good stepping stone in my life.
Oh, it's good. Yes.
To not worry so much about that because there's always going to be someone hating you around the corner. You just got to be ready to just step by him and keep doing your own deal.
Yeah,
you know, so.
and thick skin and open mind.
Right.
You got to have it.
Right.
You got to have both parts.
Absolutely.
You do have to have both parts because that is going to happen in life.
Right.
I mean, he's had parents meet him outside of the game.
Oh yeah, all of it. You know, in coaching, I don't even remember who told me, but you know, they said if you're not making some people mad, you're not doing your job. If you're trying to please so much, you're still going to make people mad.
Absolutely.
You know, so you've got to be confident in what you're doing, and just you can't. And I struggled with it, but I got a little thicker skin because I couldn't stay in the profession. Right. You know, and I think too, you know, talking about the social media and people putting comments, it's so easy. To comment. Post a negative comment and hit send.
They're happy. They're just like, man, I just ruined this person's day, and I give my opinion.
They'd never say that to your face, you know, but they don't know you, and they can post it. And you know, I also I always followed this, that you know, I don't worry about criticism from strangers. Right. You know, your peers that criticize you, those are the ones that, you know, that you need to really listen to.
Well, they care.
Because they care. Absolutely. You know, those people don't care about you.
Right.
So, you know, but I thought it was cool. You know, I did. And like, you know, Jason typically does, he looked at the video and saw more than what I saw because I just thought it was cool. And then the first thing he said was, well, he's handling that steer to where it's not even really shooting them at him.
Yeah. And I put it on one steer, fought his head a little bit, and I had just bought him, so I didn't really know what he'd do. That was the one where we got shot at a little close. And I remember thinking in the run, I was like, this is not good. But I also have this bad habit of I'm committed. And I don't know if that's something Dad put in me as a young kid, but when I'm hooked, I'm hooked. You better just be ready for it, you know, because here it's coming. You put yourself here. You better just put your head down and think through it.
Do it. Yeah. You was talking about clinics a while ago too. You know, something else that I feel like as clinicians we need to focus on a lot is I think some clinics are done in a way that we got to keep them smiling.
Absolutely. And
they just give them a generic program or generic clinic. And a lot of clinics I limit it to about 10, 12, somewhere around there.
I think that's the only way you can give a personal experience.
Personal experience,
it's too much.
Because in mine, I mean, for instance, I've had some where people, 5, 6 people have shown. One gal, she said it's the 11th ride on her colt.
Yep.
And I have to find things they can do together at different levels.
Right.
That they can all
absolutely
gain from.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of times I see people being told, good job, because that person doesn't want to lose that client.
Right.
Or offend somebody.
Right.
But they leave there and they're not better.
Right.
And I guess I would rather them leave there mad at me with truth,
right,
than to leave there with a great self-esteem, but it's a false security
false
that they
confidence.
think it's not there, and I think that can get people in trouble.
It can, and I don't know. I like how so far my clinics have been set up, how I've set them up, because it doesn't matter. Each run is different. Each person backing in the box with a different horse. I don't have to be like, all right, you guys, we're all going to lope circles to the left and we're going to switch leads here. I'm just helping somebody enjoy their hobby. And it's the same in the ranch horse or whatever. But, like, for example, I had a clinic in Snowflake a week ago. And this kid shows up, and he never swung a rope. Ever.
That's my clinic.
You know, and he saved, this kid's 11. I mean, he's a hero to me because he saved his money and bought his first horse, bought an old mare, and bought enough feed for her for the year as an 11-year-old. That shows to me that kid loves and wants to be part of this industry. Well, I buy him a couple ropes that I feel like would set him up, and I set him up, and I show him how to swing it. And this kid, first time coming out of the box, and I don't even know if his horse had been roped on, but I worked with him until I saw that his horse was watching the dummy. He goes up there, and he just saws the horns off, and I'm like, whoa. And I'm running on foot because sometimes, you know, if someone's like, oh, I'll take care of somebody on a horse, and they're like, and then it turns into a match race if a wreck happens. But if I'm standing there and I can pull a knife and cut a rope. But anyway, he goes, we had 5-6 steers that trotted, and he got a rope, I'd say 7 or 8 by the time the afternoon part of the clinic on the cattle, and I bet he caught over half of them. And you talk about feel good. Like, I was like, man, that's awesome. Sure, his horse didn't want to stand in the box. You could tell that someone had roped on her and made her not like it, but she would take care of him. She didn't do anything too much. And I guess what I'm getting at is I'm able to individualize with what I do. I feel like I can separate it. But also, at the same point, I've told a couple of people, like, that horse is way too much horse for you. Or that horse is, and Chris Watt and I were talking about that with some people, is like, hey, we probably need to sell that horse. He's not going to fit you. If you truly want to enjoy, we need to go find you that veteran that's very tolerant. And I don't know, the people pleaser in me hopes everybody comes out and it's just like, man, that was the greatest clinic in the world. But also, I've had a lot of good feedback from people that have been to other clinics, and they felt like maybe the worst roper in the arena got the most support. And then if you're a guy that has decent fundamentals and you can rope pretty good, kind of just went through the clinic. And that's why I don't know what Chris thought, but that's what I like about what I do is I can individualize it. Just like it's a private lesson, I'm going to take the time. I'm going to run with them down the arena. And if I have to ride 8 horses that day to do it, I'm going to. And they're going to get better just because of exposure. But I'm able to go down the arena and say, hey, what did you feel right there? What do you think was what was causing this issue? And so that helps me have more of a human connection, and it builds more value in these people. And just like me stepping on some of those horses, it's not that their horse is bad and it's not that the person's bad, but they're about to give up on each other. And going back to that hope, I'm able to build some hope and be like, no, you've got a great horse. You know, maybe they spent $30,000 on this head horse, or $80,000, it doesn't matter. But he's a little hot, and he's maybe too much. You know, he's the bullet bike instead of the moped. But I'm able to be like, no, you did good. You bought a good horse. Maybe it wasn't the correct fit, or maybe you wanted to buy a level up so you could get there. But don't give up, because your greatness, your big win, your enjoyment of this horse is right around the corner if you truly will stick to it. But also, like I said, I'm sure I've upset a couple of people by saying, hey, that horse, we need to find a different one. But I try to cater it to where they don't feel like I'm picking on them, rather than I'm just trying to help. I just I'm here for you. Like, call me. I'll help you find one. I'll help you try them. Whatever it takes, so that, one, that you not only believe in me, but you believe in your horse.
And they need to enjoy their hobby.
Right.
It's a hobby for them.
You don't want to go and hate it every time and fight.
I tell people, I said, if you had a 4-wheeler and every third time you rode it in the pasture, 3rd to 5th time, one of the 4 wheels fall off, I said you wouldn't ride 4-wheelers very long.
I'd sell that thing so fast.
and that's what happens a lot with the horses. And I'm not blaming the horse, but the match.
Right, the match.
They have to match each other. And a horse will whether you like it or not, when you interact with a horse, you're a horse trainer.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter.
When you walk in the barn,
It
you're
doesn't
a horse
matter.
trainer.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
If you're playing basketball and the horse is standing there, you're training him.
And so there's a lot to it that has to match up for that to work.
Right.
And that's where you have to know that why.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so many people, they just get the wrong match and their horse is stuck in passing gear.
Right.
Or it won't go, and then it starts kicking up. I said, hey, your horse is probably going to kick out here before long.
Yeah.
And you can see it coming pretty soon. It'll give a half-hearted deal. I said, it won't buck you off. It'll just kick out. Yeah. But I said, you need to go on. I said, have intent when you ask. This fractious horse over here, I said, hey, however hard you're going to ask it, do a quarter of that.
Right.
And know what a quarter is. I told someone the other day, I said, hey, your body riding a horse, you're like a 3-speed. You need like a 12-speed in your body.
Yep.
Yeah, because you got sitting, kicking a little, and kicking hard. And that's it. And that horse will reflect that.
Absolutely.
You know, some more forgiving than others.
Right.
Well, I thought you did great.
Thank you.
You know, I told everybody when I hit people up about it, you know, I said, now listen, this isn't let's see how many steers we can run today, you know, type deal. I said, this is going to be roping horsemanship,
right?
You know, and you know, I think probably every guy there had never been to a clinic that was focused on that. Right. The clinics that they'd been to we're working on roping, and we're gonna run a ton of them, and you know, till your arm's sore.
Well, I think people are too scared to do that as a teacher, afraid that
it won't go.
It won't go over.
And I've had a lot of them not happen. A lot of clinics that I've planned not work.
Yep.
But that is where I felt like I could separate myself. I do feel like I'm always improving my roping and roping better and doing things. But why wouldn't you go to see Jake Barnes? Why wouldn't you go see the guys that made the NFR to learn to rope? And they have great qualities because they've made it.
Yes.
But I felt like I had an opportunity to help the industry and create value because there's so many people that will go to a clinic and rope and they're like, yeah, I flattened out my swing or, you know, whatever. But my horse still runs by him.
Yeah.
He's a bulldogging horse.
And horsemanship has to become first unless you can do this.
Right.
Unless you can take a stick horse, back it in the corner, and go rope a steer on a stick horse.
Yep.
And then horsemanship has to be first.
Yep.
Because if you can't get there efficiently and accurately and consistently, then it doesn't matter if you can throw 30 foot of rope.
Right.
And it's very hard to get that to be number one. And I think more money can be decided. Obviously, there's a lot of money won on the start.
Yep. That's crucial.
And it don't matter how good you read cattle. If it doesn't relate to your horse, how you can cue that horse to leave, whether you're late or early, then it really doesn't matter. And I think there's I've seen some people that can rope excellent, but they can rope on a donkey.
Right. And win.
And win.
Absolutely.
Two people holding their horse in the box.
Yep.
They nod, and I mean, these guys can rope.
And they'll go split 20,000 and be like happy.
Yes, and I'm like, man, you would be deadly, so deadly, if your horsemanship would catch up with your roping ability.
Right.
And you see that, I think, a lot. I think you see people, their roping gets here.
Yeah.
And their horsemanship sometimes gets further, or it just never catches up. And I think, just like anything else, the reining has changed. The cutting has changed. The cow horse has changed. And I think the roping is going to change, in my opinion, for the better, to where horsemanship will have more impact.
Right.
I mean, you got to do something to get an edge on somebody.
Right.
Because there's a lot of people that can rope really, really good.
Man.
They can rope a steer here, or wherever.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And like I said, that was my whole goal with starting these clinics. And I've always had little things that happen, like going to Arizona. That was all off of me just kind of praying and like, that's an idea. Maybe I should try it. And so I just tried it. Like, there was no great planning or marketing or whatever. I was just calling the guys I knew that kind of believed in me and said, hey, like, will you take a chance and help me put on a clinic? And I was received great by those people and had a great first year. And this is the second year into it. And there was, you know, I canceled 2, I think, this year that I just didn't get anybody. And that's okay. But everyone I go to and every people I help, I get a little farther ahead. I get people that understand, like, man, there's something to it. And like I said, if you want to strictly work on roping, Speed Williams has a great program. He's got a speed trainer you can pick up and work on your left hand, come out there. But you're going to work on your roping. And that does work on your horsemanship and stuff, but there's still a feel. And that's what I'm trying to help people have, is a feel. And I want people to create a connection and where their horse trusts them and they trust their horse. And if I can do that, people can enjoy the sport no matter what level it is. You can be that kid that's never swung a rope before and go, hey, I like roping. Or a guy that's roped for 60 years and being like, man, I've got this head horse that just it's not quite right. And it might be one little thing that just piques that horse's curiosity and he gets better. And there's value in that. And I think, especially in today's world, I think, and I'm young, so I didn't get to see earlier years, but people built cars with more value. They built stuff with more purpose. And now everything's just fast. I need it now. And I think if a man can create value, he's going to be far beyond those who just try to create a mass-produced product. Generic, yeah. And sure, there's a lot of money in generic.
There is.
But I guess I just wasn't built generic. I mean, I was just built
I'm definitely not.
Well, you two are very like-minded in that way.
Yeah.
Very like-minded.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, I feel like you might be brothers from another mother.
And it is a lot. And it is a lot of bologna sandwiches for a long time.
It's really a lot. And if you're a slow learner like me and don't have a high IQ, it's a long time.
Me too.
And,
I'm not buying that.
I'm 47 years old, and I started, like when I was 21 years old.
Yes, sir.
And I did not grow up riding horses. Grandpa had one they plowed the garden with because we didn't have a tractor.
Right.
And I would get on it bareback and trot around on it. But, that's it.
Right.
That's it. But it was always in me.
Right.
That was my dream, to go move out west and work on a ranch. And I did both. Another one is like someone that wants to be a rope horse trainer right now. You go back and we have a fresh graduate of 18 years old, because they're not going to graduate at 16 like you. And,
that was luck.
18 years old and says, you know what? I've been roping as a young man, through my teenage years. And, I think I want to be a rope horse trainer. Where do you think they need to start?
They need to start starting colts. I see a lot of rope horse trainers that want to ride their broke ones.
Yep.
And sure, there's a feel there. And maybe they feel a little safer, but a man needs to understand the horse in his most primitive state. And I mean wild. Because a man can understand the horse, he can understand the feel, and he can understand how to communicate. And if you can do those things, you can train a horse to do whatever you want. Yeah. You can be a cutting trainer, you can be a runner trainer, you can train rope horses, but you need, I firmly believe you need a foundation in starting young horses. Just like we talked about earlier. Riding the walking horse, riding the halflinger or draft pony cross out here.
Arab.
Yeah, I've rode them all. And understanding that horses do think a lot alike, but they're also, every one of them's an individual. You cannot do stuff the same. And I feel like I see it a lot in the industry that people, I want to be a rope horse trainer, but I want them after they've been with Cade Rice or these cutting trainers or whatever, and man, they're so rank. Look what I can make him drag his butt. Well, you're literally making him drag his butt. Yeah. You never taught him to. You never understood the and I'm not saying you don't. Like, people go back and learn those things, but there's great value in riding a truly green horse and a truly unhandled or sour. The sour ones you learn the most. I feel like the wild ones are easy. And I think that's where a man should start.
I
riding
agree.
colts.
I agree completely, and I think we do it in every other industry. There's not a teacher out here, even a math teacher, in any of our school systems that says, well, I just wanted to teach math, so I didn't learn the alphabet.
Right.
Or I wanted to teach, advanced English, but I never learned the alphabet.
Right.
You know, I can speak, and I learned how to speak it, but I never learned how to spell, right? You don't find that. And I think if you are a trainer and you never learned how to start raw colts, like public colts for a while, and I think, you know, there's been some people say everybody needs to start some wild Mustangs for a while. And there's, I mean, that's as raw as it gets. But I found like them, for the most part, most of those were lazy. You'll come across one every once in a while that's dang pretty tough. We've had the trainer at our barn, Casey, she's been in the Extreme Mustang makeover a few different times, and she's done quite well at it. And I've seen some come through that didn't have to pull out many deals to get them broke, you know, and it's got 100 days.
Yeah, you got to do it
And you got to go show them in show pen.
Yeah.
Futurities, well-bred horses, the best in the world, it's 2 years.
Yep.
And then we take a feral horse that was bred by escaping mountain lions, and that's what has the natural selection process has been, and 100 days.
Yep. Have him ready.
But I feel like if you can get the public horses done and all that stuff, it gives you a foundation to where you don't have to use this phrase later, because you're going to use it a lot. I feel like if you don't, you're going to say, well, he just doesn't fit my program.
Right.
Well, that's it. Your program there's nothing in your program that can accommodate that type of horse.
Right.
Whether he's a real forward horse, or maybe he is real watchy, or maybe he is super lazy, or whatever it might be. You've not seen enough to know in the very raw stages on how to get that started. And when you have one that you're the first person for it to see you from above, when you have horses like that and you're doing it, I remember when I first started, I think this is awesome.
Yeah.
No one has ever been on his back.
Yeah.
You know, you get to see enough of those, and you have an understanding that you could really go apply in anything you want to do in horses.
Right.
And you modify it from there.
Right.
You know, but you know, humans, everybody goes K through 12.
Yeah.
Other than you, you're real smart. You go to 16. But everybody, you know, everybody starts and goes through that.
Right.
You know, so why wouldn't we do it with horsemen? You know, I think it's very, very important to learn that, and I think that there's a big lack of that. Now, there's some people that can give them a pretty good colt.
They can make a pretty nice horse.
And pretty good bred.
Because that horse is born broke in a lot of ways.
And that's the biggest mistake to a first starting trainer, because they're like,
this is easy.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Third time I said, whoa, he slid a foot.
Yep.
Yeah, got it. I am a horse trainer.
Right.
And then they get one, they said, oh, he's bronc, he's terrible. Oh, no, that one's not that bad. I'll let you know when you get a bronc.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know how many I've done, but I can only list 5 or less that were special, extra special. But that's out of hundreds. Hundreds. You know, if you have someone that's done 20 and they say 5 of them were just straight broncs, especially anymore.
Right.
I mean, especially, I feel like in 2008 when the economy crashed, you know, horses, you could buy a colt for $50.
Every day.
And the AQHA registry, you know, decreased a lot. Mm-hmm. And I feel like what stayed around was the high-end horses, the really well-bred ones. So now we have less horses, but the concentration of really good breeding that people stuck with it, those horses had to be something for people to keep breeding them, and it's built back.
Right.
And now I think that between that and the promotion in Hollywood is what's created we have more fish in the pool now. And I mean, when, you know, Hollywood come along and then COVID and everything, our business blew up, or my business did.
Right.
It blew up big time because you have more eyes on horses wanting to be involved. Yep. And I've had people come into my barn and I said, how can I help you? They set up a lesson. I said, I want my horses to ride like they do on TV. I said, Yellowstone or Bonanza? And if it's Bonanza, you got it. and I've literally had people come in and ask that, like TV. And I like it. It's great for us.
Right.
You know, and with all the new events, futurities, like you're talking about in the rope horse world, it's just more places that we can find a spot for that horse, different avenues to go with it.
Absolutely. And another thing I'd like to add, it's not start 5.
Nope.
Not start 6. You've got to start hundreds.
Hundreds.
And go through and be willing.
Yep. And that's your sole source of income.
And sole source of income.
Yes.
You've got to make it. And you don't do it like, there was a time I rode 15 outside horses by myself, and they were all start wild. I mean,
that's a lot.
That's a lot,
That's a
and
lot.
I got to dread it. I kind of got to hating it, but I still had to go through that to get where I'm at today.
Yep.
And there was some broncs.
Yep.
There was some, sure enough, outlaws. There's not many. I like you said, I can think of 2 or 3 that I'm like, man, those horses truly needed a different pull wagon or something because they're going to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
Like, sure, I can get by him, but he knows.
Yeah.
He knows when you make that one, you lean forward just enough, or whatever it may be. And those horses don't have a lot of value in my soul because I want the honesty. I want the trust. And when it's not there and you can't build it, we've got to do something different. But like you said, most horses are trainable. And if a person can truly learn how to do that, their value as a horseman or a trainer goes way up. But if you're just saying, I'm going to run, I'm only going to take X cow horses, I think you set yourself up to fail. Sure, you're riding some rank, good-looking horses, but I don't think you can get the feel and the understanding of a man that's truly spent the time with these horses to understand how they think. And so I wanted to make that clear because it's easy for a guy now to really want to rush and be at the top. And sure, that's all of our desire. But you have to go through the school of hard knocks, and you have to go through those trials that build you to be that horseman. You know, and I think that needs to be talked about a lot, that you can't just jump in and go. You don't get a 4-year college degree and you're a horse trainer. Seriously.
And it never ends.
It never ends. I learn every day. I would love to go to Nick and Trevor, and I will freaking clean up the manure with my hands if I had to meet these guys. And even if they just let me watch, they don't have to coach me, whatever. But that willingness has got to be there, whatever it takes. And some people, it's different. Some people spend everything they got, and that's whatever it takes. And other people, it's like, all I've got is me, and I'm going to give you all of it. And there's value in that. Just give what you can with what you have, and then when you have more, do more.
Yeah.
And I think I think people need to understand that in this world of give me now. Take a step back and look at the full picture, because it ain't as it seems. You know, all these trainers that think, man, I've got to have the nicest barn, the nicest horses. Some of the best horses I ever rode never had a paper. I got them for free. They were wild. I mean, Chris has been in my arena. Like, her panel's broken, you know, like the gate that never quits, you know. It's a true thing. I got miniature Dexters that are my favorite rope steers, and I've got a Jersey that weighs 800-900 that won't fit in the chute. But he still has value. And so I think people just need to understand that, like, you got to go through that. You've got to understand. Sure, it's nice to rope the M-branded Mexican Corrinis that are just made to be roped, but why not rope the Holstein? He's cheaper anyway. He's going to eat good when he's done, you know. So, and they make nice horses. So don't be scared to start. I mean, my dad always told me you can train a horse with a hay string and you sitting on his back or nothing. If you spend the time.
It's like bridles and bits, you know. I have some I like better than others, but to be honest, the common person, if you don't have a lot of feel, you're not going to know the difference in it.
Nope.
You know, and you could probably go down to Tractor Supply and buy you a bit, and you're not going to know the difference in it and a balding.
Right.
They aren't.
Right.
Now, I do.
Right.
And I can feel the difference. But I tell people, it's like with saddles. You know, a lot of people get really tied up in all these different kinds of saddles and saddle fits and all this stuff. And I tell people, I said, you know, how it fits the horse is the tree.
Right.
How it fits you is the craftsman.
Right.
That's what it boils down to. The leather, a lot of them have similar leather on them.
Right.
But for someone who doesn't live in that saddle and they just trail ride once a month, they can get by with less.
Absolutely.
As long as it fits their horse, and they're probably not going to ride the horse enough.
Right.
To soar the horse,
right.
You know, provided it's just a decent saddle. But now someone who rides all day long and is in it all day, I want that saddle to fit me pretty good.
Right.
And it has to fit a plethora of horses for me.
Yep. You got to be able to saddle 5, and it fits them all pretty good. Change the pad a little.
Change the pad.
Yep.
And instead of reaching for a different saddle. And that's another thing that just, I mean, you have to understand, people have to understand where they're at and what they need for where they're at.
Yep.
Now, if they can afford the best, that's fine.
Absolutely.
But you don't have to spend a lot.
No.
You really don't. I mean, I'm probably going to do a podcast sometime and a video on if you have this budget and you're wanting to go do this with your horse, what's some options?
Right.
Like reins and headstalls and stuff.
Right.
And I think that would be pretty interesting to get something on a budget.
Yeah. It gives people value. It gives people hope in that they can have this thing. I remember growing up, so fun fact, I own 2 saddles. Mm-hmm. I've got 10 pads.
Yep.
And sure, I would like all these custom saddles. I don't have one. The first saddle I ever won, it fits a horse really good. It's made by Cactus. Love it. I've had it rebuilt twice. Uh-huh. And I've rode it. I mean, pop the horn cap off. Like I've rode this saddle. And then my wife bought me a Jeff Smith Ranch Cutter with a team rope and tree in it.
Okay.
Because if I'm riding a young horse and I've got to catch something, I've got to catch him now, and I got to figure out. And I don't want to worry about breaking the tree or whatever. So that was something that was important to me. So she bought me that, and I'm very grateful. I ride it every day, and I love that saddle.
And you like the feel of a ranch cutter.
I love the feel because I can move and do like all the team rope and saddles. Like as a kid, my dad had me riding rope until I could reach his stirrups. Like I didn't have stirrups growing up. I rode bareback. If I wanted to go somewhere, I hopped on the back.
You roped one today?
Yeah, I roped on a horse today.
No stirrups.
No stirrups. Just
and it wasn't a smooth horse.
No, he's not as smooth, but he had some ability. He was there, but just he was frustrated. But anyway, I remember as a kid, we had trophy saddles that my mom or dad won, and I've won tons, and I've sold every one of them because I didn't like how it fit my horse, and I didn't want a pile of them, so I sold them. But as a kid, we would take those $5 saddle pads, and we had a horse and more with it. I'll just stack another one on there. We didn't hardly brush them off, and you go back and look at those horses and gain a lot of appreciation for how good they truly were. But we didn't have the greatest, but I don't remember a horse getting a white spot. My dad understood enough, and maybe we didn't have a lot, but sometimes we'd have 3-4 pads on there, and it looked wonky. But that horse stayed okay. And looking back, I'm sure there was some soundness issues or soreness issues and ulcers or whatever that I had caused or we had caused. But they weren't in the worst. They weren't in the worst position in the world,
right?
And so people got to understand that you don't want to stay there, but just the more you know, a little bit. Hey, I can invest here. Save it. Save up for that one saddle and ride it every day. Save up for 3 pads because you got the one saddle and change it for each horse, and be okay with that. Be happy. Be grateful because there's a poor soul out there drawing pictures of a horse. And my dad was that kid. He was drawing pictures of a horse until his uncle's like, hey, you want to come learn to rope? And he had a pony and whatever, and they rode. But there's somebody out there that doesn't have that opportunity. So take advantage of it. Do the best you can with what you got, and then do a little better. But I do think that budget idea is cool because someone can save up and say, hey, here's my budget, and I can have X, Y, and Z, and that's what I need right now.
On a budget. But I think that's a good idea. And then you get into the show world, and it is a show. So it's just take out half of that and say beauty pageant. And Chris laughs at me. I hate it. I mean, I really do. But my wife, I'm like, which shirt, which pad? You just tell me.
You've got the perfect situation. I tell his wife this. She loves the show. He loves to get them ready. So he gets them ready for her, and she goes and shows them.
She said, if I could just get on at the gate, that'd be my dream. She's a very good showman.
Right.
A very good showman.
And there's
and she was
difference.
groomed to that.
Right.
She was groomed. I was groomed to not come off in the beginning.
Stay sticky.
I'm riding old Sandy out here that they love.
Yeah, she's
that's
15 years old, never been run.
Never been loped.
Yeah.
And so I have a different seat that I'm accustomed to, that I'm trained to be in.
Yep.
And she was groomed. She showed hunt seat and Western Pleasure and everything.
Yeah.
And at the top on very nice horses. And so that it's a big difference, and she has a great picture, to present out there. But
has a presence.
Yeah, and we're a pretty good match, like Chris says.
That's awesome.
And she teaches really good on how to present your horse and stuff for the non-pros and amateurs. Yeah. But you've already answered some of the saddle questions. You're not a big saddle person. Just have a couple of saddles.
Sure, I'd love every saddle, but it's just one of those deals.
What works for you? And so, what about bridles? Are you a big bit man? Some people collect a lot of bits, some don't. And
I like to invest in myself, but I've made a lot of nice horses with a lot of crappy bits, and it's that feel. And recently, I have invested in some nicer bits.
Okay.
There's a guy in Arizona. He's an up-and-coming bit maker, and I like his bits. His name's Jesse Hoover.
Okay.
And I've used some of his bits. His Instagram is Hoover Bits and Spurs, or Facebook.
Okay.
Really good bit maker. And like you said, you can tell a difference between a Kerry Kelly and a Balding and Tractor Supply. And that's what I grew up on, Tractor Supply. But
that's not your sponsor.
No, none of those guys. No, nobody's my sponsor with bits. But I think bits are
overvalued.
Overvalued,
and
people want to buy a bunch of them.
Yes,
and think someone, this bit, I just need a bigger hammer.
Yeah.
That might not be the case. Maybe your release is terrible. And so I do appreciate the feel of a good bit maker, and I see the value in it, and I'll save up and I'll buy one here and I'll buy one there. I don't think you can get better than a snaffle, really, an O-ring snaffle. And I'll even start a lot of my colts. Scott Hume in Texas trains cutting horses. He makes a nice rope nose hackamore, and I start all my colts in it now, rather than going straight to the bit. Or I'll start them a halter first couple of days. I just want forward movement, left and right. But I found that rope nose for rope horses prepares them, if you ride it right, for balance, and it prepares them for a tie down. I don't know if in your younger years you put a tie down on a horse and he flips over because he feels trapped. What that does is it helps me get a better feel, and they learn to stay behind the tie down rather than pressing on it. And I don't want a horse leaning in it, just like the racehorse effect. If they're leaning on it, they're not balanced. And so I have a couple really good snaffles that I enjoy. I've got one Kerry Kelly. I've got 3 of the Hoover Bits and Spurs bits, and I'll just keep adding. But I don't have a big bit selection, but I do enjoy getting my horses broke to multiple bits, and I think there's value to that because I sell them. There's no telling what that guy puts on them. Sure, you can say, hey, here's the exact bit, and you should ride this on your horse. But he's going to change. And there's some people that leave it on there to a fault, and then you don't use it right, it doesn't mean anything, whatever. But I think where people need to put their value in is how they use their hands, how they have a feel. And then the bit's a tool rather than an accessory. I don't care if that bit's covered in rust and has a shank that I've had to fix twice because a colt rubbed it on the fence and bent it. You know what I mean? Whatever that takes. But there's a certain feel there. Like there's masters in saddle making, and that's an art. I feel like there's an art in making bits, and people that build that value, that's why they can charge what they charge. But that's not the first thing I'm going to go chase, if that makes sense. So
I agree completely there. I have the same thing. Some snaffles I use. Rod Tuzier makes some snaffles, and I use them. And I went to a little bit. They have a little bit heavier rings now,
right?
Just a little bit,
right?
And then as far as my other bridles, I mean, it's just I have very few.
Right.
I don't have a lot.
Right.
I really don't. Now back to the rope noseband. I've sold a lot of horses to a guy that calf ropes. He's bought a ton of them, And we start everything in it's kind of like the stiffer cord rope halter,
right.
but we've got 2 of them made where they have loop rein on them where you can ride them. And I had that, and I have I think it's a 5/8 Basel. And I did run into a problem one time. I had a gelding that I rode, and then when it went to the rope trainer, I got him broke off the nose enough, tie down. He couldn't hardly ride him with a tie down very good. He'd get stuck in reverse. He'd touch it and then just back up.
Yep.
And he'd loosen it. But if that horse would touch it, he'd stop.
Yep.
And so that's the only time I ever ran into that. And I've never had it affect one by me starting them in rope halters, pretty much rope halters.
Right.
Because we ride them all in that. And I had, back when I'd done more of it, I don't start as many colts anymore. And, but I'd ride one probably a little too long. I might ride one 30, 60 days in it because I liked it.
Yeah.
Before I went to a bit, and I was like, man, I've got to put this thing in a bit, because someone else is going to, and I'd rather be the one introducing it.
Right.
Like a tie down or a shank bit, if it's going to go into a shank bit, if it's going to be my horse, I'll ride it in a ring snaffle a year.
Right.
About a year. But if someone had one and I know they're going to put it in a, the old Tom Thumb or whatever.
Right.
I'm going to put it in a shank bridle because I feel like I'm doing that horse a disservice.
Absolutely.
If I allow them to do it.
Absolutely.
Because they'll go home, it's felt nothing but a ring snaffle, no curb pressure.
Put a correction on him and say,
They
hey,
will.
Turn around.
Yeah, and they'll pull on him and says, this horse is reared up on me. It's a rare.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have to do that for the horse's sake, not because I necessarily agree with it, but I think it's doing a horse a disservice if I don't.
Right.
But all right, we'll end it with I'm going to ask you, number one. I got 2 questions here. Number one, where do you see yourself in 10 years? You'll be 35.
I'll be 35 years old.
Yeah.
I truly believe, and I have to look down at my goals that I've written down. I need to read them more often, I guess. But I see myself, I'll have a family, and I'll be, I won't say the best, but I want to be one of the top rope horse trainers and just horsemen in the industry.
Now, is this gearing towards the fraternities more?
Yes,
or
sir.
are you going to?
Yes, sir. Towards the fraternities. And I say about that time, I want to be thinking about going pro rodeoing. I don't know how that time frame's going to hit.
Yes.
And whether I'll be heading or heeling, I don't care. I love to rope. So it'll kind of depend on what horses I have. And I see myself in a rather than a state of scarcity and like I have to make it or I have to worry, I want to be in a spot where I'm truly grateful all the time. And that's a hard place to get to because you don't want to be in this place where you're successful and you become prideful and arrogant. Like, I know I'll be all, but I think there's a lot of value in life for the people that have gratitude. And I think people get a lot further. I think the laws of the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, will build when you have a grateful attitude and an attitude of, what do you want to call it? Fullness. And I think that's something I really want to work on in my life where it doesn't matter. I train horses because I love it. I go hunt out because I love it. I don't have to feel like there's certain things that make me click. And I think if a person can get in that state, a person can be truly happy and truly successful. And I want that for me because that'll make me a better father, a better horseman, a better husband. And so that's where I'm working now. And so 10 years down the road, I sure hope that I stick to that and become the best man that I can become by that time. So I can be an example to others and be who I was created to be rather than just another person, another guy commenting on Facebook. I would rather be a guy that builds value. And it doesn't matter what anybody says because I'm happy. I'm in true joy rather than the false of what people think joy could be. And that doesn't mean you don't have money. You could be rich as all get out. But you've got to be in a life of abundance and gratitude and giving and helping and creating that value. And without that, what are we? We're nothing. We've got to be good stewards of what we've been given. So I don't know, that's kind of my goals for when I'm 35 to be there. And I might not get it till I'm 85, but that's my where I want to be. So.
How about that for an answer from a 25-year-old?
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, he's got his why figured out.
Yeah.
Yes. So many people, you can, and I've done this at clinics as I want you to write down a piece of paper. If you could be anything in the world, do anything in the world, and it all paid $100 million a year, what would it be? See, you've taken money out of it.
Right.
And there's honesty there now. And they would write it on a piece of paper. Then I said, show me your hands if that's what you're doing now.
Right.
And they're not.
Right.
And then I said, you have to ask why.
Right.
Why? Well, there's all kinds of other whys why they're not.
And it's easy to lose. It's easy to lose hope.
It is.
It's easy to fall into the state of natural man. The natural man wants to do bad things, or the natural man wants to be lazy or be inconsiderate, be selfish, impatient, and it's tough. I mean, it takes a lot of mental fortitude to become great. And that's why you watch guys that are truly great and not great out of competition, like mental competition, but they're great because that's who they were created to be. They're great because they are grateful. And I think the guys that are truly successful, and in my opinion of success, is they're so grateful and they're so helpful and courteous that the money or the fame or whatever that comes,
it's a byproduct.
It's a byproduct, and they can use that for good rather than their own gain. I think there's an end to using stuff for your own gain.
Yeah. And I think if you're just after the fame or the money, you fall prey to the success breeds contentment.
Right.
And contentment, in my opinion, breeds misery.
Absolutely.
Because just like a ball can't sit on the side of a hill, I mean, if we are content, you take someone who retires from their job. More times than not, the first thing I notice is they get most stingy with not their money but their time.
Right.
They have nothing to do.
Are you directing this at me?
No, not at all. You're a busy man. But I have witnessed it a lot.
Right.
Retirement, and now they're content. There's nothing driving them. They don't redirect their life, they retire. And I always look at it as there's redirection. And he has a redirection. He still has basketball. He teaches lessons.
Yep.
But he also enjoys roping.
Right.
Like we enjoy hunting. And
Stay
stuff.
busy.
And stay busy. And I feel like contentment, their health fails.
Yep.
Because they're not as active.
Right.
They don't have a why.
Right.
And I think we all need a why. We all need a why. And I think everybody's born with a why. I think when we're born, we have that deep down deal that's been put in us of a desire. And I think we have attributes to complement it. It's up to us to develop them.
Right.
And I think that's not saying it's going to be easy, but you have things that will complement that desire that's been put in you, and I believe it's from God, put in you. You have things that you might have tendencies. We'll call them tendencies, but they will complement that to help you along the way. Now, it's up to you what you do with them.
Right.
Because you can have an athlete. He had several athletes, but it's up to them to use the athletic ability. And rarely do you get one that has the extra hard work ethic, try, and athletic ability.
Right.
You call them Michael Jordan.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And when you have something like that, and they're out there, Kobe Bryant.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You have people like that. You have it in MMA. You have it George St. Pierre. You have a lot of different people like that. But then you have others that are super talented. And as you see in the roping, I mean, I see a lot of young kids. I knew a young kid that could tie two. He's a cousin of mine. He could tie two head ropes together and throw it that length and catch the dummy. Mm-hmm. That's over 60 foot of rope.
Yep.
You know, and he don't even rope anymore.
Right.
But he goes to the U.S. as a 3 or 4 and wins so much they stop him.
Yeah.
They said no more, and he's kind of what started.
I wasn't sure who you were talking about, but now I do.
Justin.
Yeah.
But this kid was talented, but he doesn't even rope anymore.
Right.
You know, and I think it's up to us to take whatever talents we have and to go with them. But we can't chase other things like, well, I'll take it and I'll do it, but how much does it pay?
Right.
Because I promise I didn't ask that. I started training horses and I got $330 a month.
Yep.
And when I came back here from Arizona, I couldn't get horses.
Right.
Hardly. And I would cut wood and sell firewood and pick up walnuts. Mm-hmm. Right now they're falling.
Right.
And that would make an insurance payment for a year.
Right.
I mean, for a month.
Right.
For that month. And that's what I did. But I was super hard-headed.
Yeah.
And I was blessed with that.
Right.
And that can be a crutch too.
Right.
But I think people have to find that why. And they know it, but they don't listen to it.
No.
They spend their whole life searching and wandering. And this isn't dress rehearsal.
No.
There's no redo.
No. This is what you're given. This is the time you're allotted, and you don't know when it's going to end.
No.
You don't know when stuff's going to happen. Just like you were talking about, I've seen so many horses that people retire. That sucker colics and dies a week later, or goes downhill and someone can't ride him because he's lame. And then I see the other one that's been if he had an odometer on how many steers he ran, he'd be in the history books because, and he's running them at 32 with kids and still loves it, or maybe not even love it, but it keeps him alive.
Yep.
And you know, I do believe that God instills in us that purpose, and it's our duty to find it, work on it, and build it. And like I said, I train horses because that's what God's told me I'm supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And how I do it and how I approach it is the most crucial. Mm-hmm. And it's like we've talked about, it's bologna sandwiches. It's tough. And you know, I'll even be out and write like, my goal is to become financially rich. Mm-hmm. And that might not be through the horses. That might be a whole nother business idea. But it helps bring my horses and myself in a different direction. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be so involved in this mentality of I've got to hurt other people or do, well, pretty much breaking the commandments to get ahead. That's not what the Lord wants for us. Mm-hmm. He wants us to be genuine and be considerate. And I think He will always magnify that. Mm-hmm. He'll always magnify the try, just like we do with our horses. Mm-hmm. If we feel the thought of Him giving His very best, thank you, I'm done. You know, let's go do something else, or I'm getting off. Mm-hmm. And I think that is where people, with the instant gratification and all the things that we have now, that people get stuck in. People get stuck in that complacency. They get stuck in this, it's this way or the highway. Just like you training horses, right? You couldn't get any. You went and picked up walnuts, right? That's what it took. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you're not going to be a great horseman. Mm-hmm. My sacrifice I feel right now, I don't jackpot a lot, and I love it. I mean, if I had the money and the horses, I would never be home. But I feel like that's a true sacrifice for me because I want to build this. I want to become my best self, my best horseman. I can sharpen up. It's tough, and I still go, and I still got to season horses and whatnot. But if I'm so busy on, man, I'm going to win the next jackpot, I'm not focused on my clients as much. I'm not focused on growing my own personal development because I'm putting myself to be busy rather than purposeful. And I think that's a big thing. You can be busy your whole life and identify as busy and not get it anywhere. And you can be the hardest worker in the room. And so it's one of those deals. There's a balance in everything. There's a purpose in everything. And And I'm not saying I do it right. I do more things wrong. I've blown up more horses. I've done it all. I've messed up, but that doesn't mean you can't learn and grow. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you have to stay there. That doesn't mean you have to be stubborn and stuck in your ways. Mm-hmm. That's a big detriment to a lot of people, I feel like. And I was that person. Mm-hmm. When I was 20, I'm like, I'm going to train horses, and that's all I'm doing. And I feel that way. I still am going to train horses, but I'm also open to other avenues. Like, I thought about making a coloring book the other day. I'm kidding. Yeah. I'm not kidding.
I've never thought about making a coloring book.
I've got rope ideas and all sorts of stuff that
you're thinking.
And that creativity is what builds champions. You rode horses that were born to be a ranch horse. I've rode horses that I knew when I roped the first steer on him, this horse was created to be a rope horse.
To be a rope horse.
And that, people need to find that. People need to get to the roots and find that purpose in it. And the world's going farther away from that, and it's hard to get back to it. Mm-hmm. But if I can be a help to anybody in my clinics or whatever, think. Just sit down and think. Be present. You can't train a horse and be thinking about basketball and other things. You've got to be right there in the moment. And you can ask my wife. I'm not very present with her because I'm thinking about horses.
Yeah.
And that's a struggle that I'm working on to be a better husband and a better man for her. Mm-hmm. But it takes a lot of mental fortitude to meet all these different requirements that we feel as a man or as a horse trainer or whatever. And it's easy to get caught up in the busy. So I think if we can take a step back and look at the bigger picture, just like Einstein, he's going to make it. Yeah. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be next week. But if you look at the bigger picture, it's there.
Yeah.
And there's purpose in that. And I think I was talking with about that Gruyere horse today. Mm-hmm. I can mash on him, and maybe he gets better for a month. Mm-hmm. Then I fight it for a year because you mashed in the wrong areas instead of, all right, you're scared, but let's just go a different direction, and maybe we end up taking a shortcut on our own by not rushing the problem. But you can't be complacent. So I'm talking circles a little, but I think we're able to. If I can be a help to somebody that can just think, and there's horsemen out there, there's people that need help. And I don't care if you're playing the flute or playing basketball or roping steers. Find your purpose, work on it, build it, find people that know, and don't be scared to try. Mm-hmm. Even if you're scared to ask, just be there. You're going to learn something, and then you'll get the courage to ask, and you'll get the courage to just take that next step, and that's all it takes. I've lived a life of being absolutely scared of everything, and that's not a good place to be, but it's got me where I am. And so now that next step is to be grateful and purposeful and look for that stuff. And anyway, I keep talking. But,
You're good.
You're good. I hope I can help build value in somebody's life, and that puts value in me.
And I think you already are, and I think you're probably doing a really good job at it. I didn't get to attend today because I was at schooling riding horses circles at a horse show, but I would like to just come over and hung out and messed around. But Chris said it was really good.
It was.
Has good feedback from it, and that's good. And I appreciate you coming in here. I don't even know what time it's doing. Yeah, it's 10:30 at night.
Oh yeah.
But that's fine. Chris, is there anything else you want to say or ask? Or
I'm just glad this happened.
Yeah, and I hope we get a chance to ride with each other sometime. And I was actually out in Scottsdale. Mm-hmm. No, I flew into Mesa. I went to a funeral of a guy in Snowflake that kind of got me started in the horse business, Mr. Bob Seymour, up on the mountain. And I went out was it January?
It seems like that's when it was.
And I had an extra day. And I told Chris, I think I'm going to call Jayde and just see if he'll do a podcast with me while I'm here because I've got an extra day possibly in Mesa.
Right.
And I ended up not having as much time down there and didn't end up contacting you. And then Chris started coming down there and seeing you. And
well, and he and I talked about this already, but I mean, you told me, I think that's your guy.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
And based on the things that you said and the podcast, so that's how important these can be.
They are.
Yeah, I listened to it first, I think, and then you called and said, "Hey, there's this podcast." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I've
already heard it.
I've heard it." I said, "You probably need to go look him up." I said, "I think this might be," because I'm particular about mentorship.
Absolutely.
And he's very particular about it also. And because I think there's the people that don't seek mentorship, they're too prideful,
right?
And that's a problem. Then there's the people who they're very willing to get mentorship, but they got a bad picker.
Right.
Not that you can't learn from everybody.
Sometimes it's what not to do.
It is. But sometimes you can search so much without a base set of principles that you get confused.
Right.
I think once you have a good set of principles, you can reach out and search a little bit more and add to your arsenal.
Right.
But in the beginning, some people, the last trainer that called me before you guys got here, he had a question about a piece of equipment. And I said, listen, a lot of people use it. A lot of people use it. I don't. I have one, but I don't use it. Mm-hmm. But I said, there's a lot of successful trainers use it, but I don't know their program.
Right.
And sometimes you have to take, for it to make sense to the horse, and I'm an advocate for the horse, you have to take the whole program if you do it this way.
Right.
In order for it to make sense.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, some people start a turn with their hand. Some start it by waving their inside leg, get the horse to look. Some outside leg.
Yeah.
I mean, and you kind of, I think in fairness to the horse, you have to be careful about changing something 180 every day.
And I've done it.
Yeah, I have too.
I still do it sometimes.
Yeah.
Just playing with the spin and stuff. I'm like, well. Yeah. And some, you'll figure out some horses work better with one and some work better with
another. They do,
another.
and that's why you need a big toolbox.
Yep.
And because I've had people say, well, you taught me this one. You were telling me to turn it like this. I said, this is another horse.
Yep.
This horse is heavy in the front end, or he's too forward.
Right.
The other one will suck him back, and so we have to dive into that. Well, we have been 2 hours and 19 minutes. And
we could go another 10 if you want.
But I appreciate you taking the time and everything, and I hope to get to ride and see you more if I'm ever out in the bad winter that we have here. If I'm out there,
or you go south.
Yeah.
Or you might just get a call and I'm gonna be like, hey,
I'm almost there.
I'm gonna be
I'm
there.
almost there. Yeah.
Because I'll do it.
And you're welcome to come ride anytime. We ride, all day, every day, or however many horses I have.
Right.
I do try to make myself be a little more diligent about uploading this kind of stuff and editing it.
Absolutely, you got to.
And that is not something that I really have to make myself sit down at a computer for 3 hours a day sometimes.
Right.
And that's not a lot of fun, but it needs to be done, and we need to reach people. There needs to be more people hear the message you have, that in the horsemanship, and I think it can help a lot of people, and I think it's something that a lot of people will be interested in.
Absolutely.
And so we might have a sit down sometime and talk more in depth if people have anything they want to hear about as far as training us to go more in depth on anything, or any kind of horsemanship, horse psychology, whatever it might be.
Right.
I'm sure we'd be willing to dive into that. And if you guys will just like and share any of this on social media, it's kind of hard to spread podcast,
right?
Unless you just tell a friend. Yeah. It's kind of hard to be seen and be found. Or you can email the podcast. And then how do they find you on everything again?
It's just Jayde Slade. I've got Facebook and Instagram. I have a website, but just like we were talking about, I'm not savvy with that kind of stuff, and so it's way behind. Hopefully I'm uploading more of my horses that I got for sale and stuff like that soon. But Facebook, Instagram, you can call me, text me. I'll get back with you. I enjoy helping people. You got videos, questions, whatever. I'm here for it. So
yeah, and it's Jayde Slade, Jade, and then
Jayde.
Oh, Jayde.
DE,
and then
Slade, Slade.
Don't send him Facebook messages because they get lost.
Yeah, if you're not my friend, I don't see the message request, and sometimes I do, but it takes forever.
I'm the same way. Same way.
A man gets busy training horses,
well, you don't do that on purpose.
I genuinely want to help everybody and get back with everybody, and also, just like you're talking about editing podcasts and stuff, I'm trying to edit videos and learn how to market myself via social media, and that's foreign to us. We like the horses, and it takes time, and it might be even a little unconventional, or it's not the right way, and it'll take us way longer than it should.
Yeah, we are cowboys.
But that's just how it is. So, you can reach out to me via Instagram, Facebook, and
Jayde Slade on Instagram or Facebook.
Try to friend me first.
Yeah, friend him
because
first.
if not, I won't see it.
Yeah. And then you can always email changingeyespodcast@gmail.com. And then there's Changing Eyes Podcast or Changing Eyes on Instagram. And then on Facebook also, you can check us out and send us a message. And if you can't get a hold of him, you can get a hold of me or email the podcast, and we'll try to hook you up and get you hooked up with him.
Perfect.
But anyway, thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you guys later.